Pirate fans, welcome to the start of the fall 2023 athletic season. We are T-minus 3 days till our very first home athletic event of the season, and that will be the Southwestern Concordia Cross Country Opener. We come to you from inside the Robertson Center at Southwestern University, and our guest joining us today will be the host of that very first event of the season. We would like to welcome Southwestern alumni, class of 2014, head of men's and women's cross country coach Joe Sponsel. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, enjoying the clouds that we've had today, bringing us a little relief from the crazy heat we've had last week.
So how was your summer, Coach?
Pretty productive. We had a steady stream of recruits on campus, steady stream of recruit calls, which that grind never stops. So it's kind of nice to fill some of the doldrums in the summer, but I got to do some traveling personally, went to Europe for a week and went to Minnesota to visit some family up there. So pretty well-rounded.
So last season we hosted the very first cross-country event on campus in history and hosted the 2022 SCAC Championships last year. You came on in February 2023, so this will be your first full season as a head coach. Can you give a quick intro on your background, your time here at SU, and why you wanted to come back and coach?
So as far as my background, I grew up playing soccer. I played basketball a little bit, and I ran cross country and track in middle school. And then in high school, I was under the impression that I had to pick. And at that point, I had played soccer for a lot longer. I had more friends in soccer, so I chose soccer. Played that through high school, played at Southwestern for a few years, and kind of got burnt out by just year after year after year playing. But I had a lot of good friends on the cross country and track team that kind of convinced me to come out. And I talked to the coach, Coach Smith back then, and thankfully she let me on the team. And I ran track my junior year, cross country and track my senior year, had an absolute blast. It was a very different sport and like culture around the sport than a lot of the team sports I had played growing up, which I found really refreshing after being burnt out. And I talked to Coach Smith about what I wanted to do with my what I could do with my degree and how I could combine it with running. And between her and one of the exercise and sports science classes I took at Southwestern my senior year, sports psychology, that's kind of led me down that path. And I went to Cal State Fullerton for grad school for sports psychology. I had an awesome cohort of fellow grad students and an awesome group of professors. One of them being Dr. Tracy Statler. She was the USA Track and Field sports psychology consultant for a long time, and so she was very influential in my experience there, as well as I was a grad assistant on the track and cross country teams, which was a very different experience from what I had encountered at Southwestern. Fullerton was a much bigger school in Division I, different part of the country. A lot of things were different, and it was really important for me, I think, to compare that experience to what I had experienced at Southwestern, and see, and it helped me figure out I actually want to do coaching specifically, and where I want to coach at a school like Southwestern, that I appreciated the small school experience when I had something to compare it to. And then after grad school, I was back at Southwestern for a year of volunteer coaching, and then the last 4.5 years I was at Sewanee, an old foe of Southwestern back in the old SCAC, and the SC and the SAA to come, I guess, in the next couple of years. Loved it there, and that kind of reinforced the decision, yes, I want to be at a small school like Southwestern. That environment, the balance between the academics and the athletics, and the ability to do other things as well with, internships and clubs and a bunch of other things you could be involved in was really appealing, and I connected well with those students. And then as far as coming back to Southwestern, it was a no-brainer. I grew up in Georgetown. My parents still live here. I still have high school friends that live in the area. My then girlfriend was just graduating from Rice at the time, and now fiance. We live in Georgetown together, which it was tough doing long distance for a while. So everything improved. I went from assistant to a head coach. I live closer to my family, my friends, my fiance. It was like I said, there was nothing that said don't take this job. And so I've been super happy being back in town and at Southwestern ever since. And I'm excited to help the program now from the other side, coaching instead of just being a student athlete here.
So you actually did coach track in the spring. What have you learned about those athletes that did run on the track team? And is there any correlation to cross country, or is it completely different? And what are you looking for out of your athletes as a whole this year?
The first thing that I learned that stood out to me right away was how dedicated this group was. Last fall, the previous coach went to a new position at a different school right, like a week or two before the season started, but it would have been real easy to, kind of be discouraged by that and have that really affect performances throughout the season. But is everything I've heard and talked to the other coaches about this team is that, and from the athletes directly, is that they kind of came together around that moment of doubt and uncertainty, and really decided that this was something that was very important to them, and they, kind of had to rely on themselves a little bit more, rely on each other to stay accountable, to stay, to be reminded of why they enjoy the sport and why working hard at it is important to them. And that was true, which led to the team culture being very, very strong between the men's and women's teams, and as a group, as a total group, which was very fortunate for me stepping in, trying to learn everything about them. Team culture is the workouts, the science behind training is what it is. That is not really changing too much, but the team culture from one school to the next and changing a team culture can be, sometimes the biggest challenge. So I was very fortunate to step into a place where it was already very strong. And with the big group of incoming freshmen and the other newcomer to the team this year, initially I wanted them to show that same passion and dedication, and include being more welcoming and open to the newcomers to the team. And by all accounts, they've done that They've done an excellent job of that. All of the freshmen, in the first couple weeks, we had an individual meeting, and they all said that they don't feel like freshmen. They're just someone else on the team. They didn't have a weird awkward phase. There wasn't I have to prove myself or earn it. They were just right away clicked. And if you're standing back watching the team, you'd have no idea who's a freshman, who's a senior, who's our number 1 runner, who's our number 12 runner, anything like that. You can they're just one big group of people, men's and women's team together, because we do a lot together. And that's a great place to start from with the passion, the dedication, and that they like putting in the work together.
So you mentioned the situation with the team last year. Who will be leading your team this year in performance, but also in just personality as well?
In personality, I actually asked specifically this question to the team at the end of last track season. Do you guys want captains for the fall? Because we didn't have them for track in the spring. I don't know if they had them last fall or not, but all of them said no. They were happy to not have captains and just let the collective group culture that they had formed over the last 10 months or however long be the driving force of moving the team forward and taking on challenges and things. And I was happy to not name captains. If that's what the team wanted, then that's fine. Throughout the season, I saw that certain people stepped up in certain moments, and that certain moments that fit their personality. It wasn't always the same person being vocal, or it wasn't always the same person in every moment, but sometimes the team needs someone more vocal to kind of get them in line or move them from one thing to the next, or sometimes they need someone who's more encouraging and positive to remind them that why what they did or didn't do in a race was okay or was good, point something out that they might have missed, or show them some tough love sometimes too. I've seen a few instances of that as well. And so that's kind of how I think the team wants to operate this fall, and that, to me, that is easier to accommodate than me trying to force captains on the team or anything like that. As far as who's leading us on the course, on the women's side, Rachel Kiela came in really, really fit, and she was kind of had a breakout season, so to speak, last track season. And so I'm looking forward to seeing her continue that strong performance in cross country, because I know she's got some big goals this year and I want to help her reach them. That being said, the rest of our top 5, including a couple newcomers to the team, is going to be much tighter this year than last year, where it was a lot more spread out. And so I'm really excited to see that group kind of progress as a group, because last year was kind of individuals training as individuals and racing as individuals, but now they've got some people to rely on in the race. On the men's side, so far in workouts, it's the returner Brian Armijo, 10K school record holder. But he's been one of our freshmen. Kevin Love has been step for step with him pretty much every day. So I'm excited to see them kind of battle with each other to see like who, is going to be the number one on the team. But if it changes each meet, I'm happy with that. That means we have some depth. That means we have flexibility. If one of them has a bad day, the other one is right there to keep the team afloat. And that's kind of true for like 3-4 and 5-6. Like 3 through 7 or 8 might be a different order every meet, and that's great for me. That's great for the team, because that means we have depth. If someone is sick or injured or something, we don't lose anything in the results because we got someone right behind them or right with them in a group that is going to fill in that gap.
So I'm glad you started talking about the team in general. That being said, this has to be one of the biggest overall teams between both the men and women that I've seen here at SU. So talk about what your recruiting process is like for you this past year and in general. Give us a little bit of insight into the world of cross-country recruiting.
Yeah, this is the biggest cross-country team that I can remember, even back to when I was a student athlete here. This was maybe about the size of the team we had, but then since then, I don't think the team has been this big, which is good. And everyone from last year who didn't graduate is back on the team again, which to me says we're doing the right things team culture wise. We're enjoying the work that we're putting in. We're enjoying who we're doing the work with and where we're doing it. And on top of all that, we're getting better. Running faster times, which is a big reason why we're here. What I'm looking for in a recruit, was that the question, or my process?
Recruiting process.
Okay, sure. So, there's a lot of different ways I can, first get in touch with recruits. I can just search through some of the big, high school meets in the area, or I can look back at a lot of the district or regional meets through track and the track season and see kind of, which districts are really strong, where I might start, emailing high school coaches, or, I might circle that on my calendars. All right, next year I want to be at that meet and talk to athletes in person. I've also worked with our admissions office to help to find a list of the top, 100 schools that send athletes to Southwestern, which kind of helps me get a head start on these are strong academic schools, which is the number one priority here. And so that helps direct my energies a little more efficiently earlier on in the process. There's a bunch of recruiting services as well that are out there that I'll use a few of them and pull some names from there. And those are the main ways that people come across my desk. Sometimes people hear about us first before I hear about them, and that makes it way easier. And from there it's just kind of introduction. Hey, I'm from Coach Joe from Southwestern. This is our priority. This is what I'm looking for. Are you interested in running in college at all? And from there, hopefully I can get them on a phone or on a Zoom call or something, and I can explain a little deeper about that we have we keep academics first, but we're here to take this seriously too, the running seriously too, and kind of go a little deeper into philosophies and let them ask some questions about training and mileage and stuff like that. And if it goes well, then we can get them on campus. And if they get on campus and meet the team, that's the biggest thing that sells the school, sells the program, sells everything that we're doing here. Like I started this answer with, is the team culture is great right now. Everyone's come back from last year. The freshmen coming in feel really welcome. They're having a good time. And for prospective students to see that is a big impression. Because I could roll out the red carpet for anybody and say, I could say anything, but then to ask the team and ask them and say, this is what Coach Joe said. Is that really how it is? Is that really how it is with professors, with classes? Is he really that flexible? Or are we, what kind of hotels are we staying in? Things like that. Is he really nice like he seems on the phone or whatever? They get the true answer from the team, while they're eating in the cafeteria, and they get to test the cafeteria food, which I think is good, but will the team sometimes has complaints about. But I mean, every team is going to complain about the cafeteria at some point. But like I said, the team is the big selling point after that. So if I can get them to campus and meet the team, that's my main goal. And they can ask the team questions about academics and everything. And so, and from there, it's kind of in the recruits' hands. Do they have any more questions? What do they want to know? What kind of impact do they want to have? And where do they see themselves being successful at the other places they're looking at too?
So you talked about practice a little bit when you're recruiting and how training goes. So for this season, how practice has been going, and then tell us a little bit about how your team trains. What kind of work are they putting in on a week-to-week basis? You mentioned mileage, and do you tailor those trainings and practices specifically for individuals or for the whole team? Just overall, kind of how your training goes.
This year so far, the training has been going really well. The incoming freshmen especially, but a lot of the returners too some of them had the best summers of training they've ever had. They came in and really impressed me with our time trial last week of preseason. And it's continued through the 3 or 4 workouts we've had so far. Which again goes back to the team culture of they're dedicated, they're passionate, they want to get good, they want to get better, and they want to do it with the team as well. They're not just here for themselves. The way I've kind of pieced together this first bit of training for a couple weeks is kind of like to set the standards, set like strong expectations, and kind of start with like some smaller building blocks. So like the first workout we did was like shorter reps at tempo pace, which is or lactate threshold, which is like a really important training effort for long distance runners. And so I really wanted to make sure that they got that down as accurately as possible, as early as possible, because we're going to hit it a lot, at least once a week likely. And then we did some form drills last week. We really focused on that. And then the next day combined it with hills, which really reinforced the form. And because if you can run more efficiently, if you can have better form, you can run more efficiently. You can you can go further at the same pace or go faster for the same distance if you're running more efficiently. And we're combining that with the work we're doing in the weight room, which we're fortunate to have the athlete-only weight room and 2 full-time strength and conditioning coaches, which has been, like I said, it's been awesome to work with those guys so far. And the team, I think, is really picking that up quickly too. And then like this last week, I kind of combined what we did with the previous week. We did like tempos and hills this last week. So, can we be accurate at that important pace and be running up and down hills, which we are going to encounter on our first couple meets on our home course. And so it like starts with like little pieces and then combining them and getting better and better at each piece. And that's kind of how I'm projecting like each 2 weeks of training is like, all right, what can we stack on to what they've already been practicing and doing well, to prepare specifically for like the next race. And like that's kind of like our game plan compared to like a team sport where we're going to play this team, they play this style. It's kind of the same thing as we're racing on this course, it's very hilly or it's very flat. We can kind of adjust our training to match that and prepare for those conditions. As far as mileage, the mileage varies a lot through the team. Each person is running relatively consistent mileage each week, but everyone on the team is coming from a different high school experience, different high school training programs, and getting a clear understanding of that helps to prescribe them an appropriate amount of mileage each week and in the summer. So some people on the team came from a really relatively low mileage high school program, and some of them came from I wouldn't necessarily call it high mileage program, but a program that they were running appropriate mileage at. So some of the guys on the team are running 35 to 40-ish miles. A couple of the guys are running 70 plus, and it just depends on what their experience is and what they're ready to handle, what is going to help them be productive without increasing the risk of injury. Same thing on the women's team is some of the women are that 25 to 30, some of them are 50 to 55, upwards of 60 at their longest week.
So you talked about courses a little bit in your training. First question is going to be, what has it been like preparing and organizing your our first home cross country event of the season, and then how would you describe our course in terms of difficulty for the runners overall?
The preparing for the meet has been a lot of work. There's a lot of moving parts between facilities and getting the timer and the starter and all of the other people who have to help with the meet besides just the teams racing the meet. But I think at this point we've got a pretty good handle on it. We're just finishing setting up the course today, and then it'll be up for most of the fall through both of our meets. As far as the course itself, I think it's maybe a little bit easier than it was last year. We were able to get access to a back field that kind of connects to the previous course that existed, which is mostly flat, so it kind of eliminates some of the up and down hills that we got, or that the course had last year. Some tight curves were eliminated, and so I think it's going to be slightly easier, but still relatively challenging compared to a lot of the courses out there, and especially a lot of the newer ones, which are, around soccer complexes that are, pancake flat, or, places like that prioritize like keeping it flat versus, mixing up the terrain a little bit and keeping it, what a traditional cross-country course was or is. There's a few sections that are mostly grass, a few sections that are really packed dirt. We run across the track for a little bit. We run downhill, uphill, some long, sneaky uphills, a couple hills that hit you right in the face that are very obvious hills that that's going to be a challenge, which is nice because then you can kind of plan around it too. You can plan your race strategy around it, which is just interesting, and seeing how well we can execute that race plan. I like our course a lot. I'm excited to see how it runs this weekend.
So what advice are you giving your runners, especially the freshmen, before this first race on our home course? And then to kind of cap off everything we talked about going forward, what are some goals you have for your team this year?
The advice for the freshmen for this first meet is to not blow this meet out of proportion. It is a big deal. It's your first college race, but for most of them it's a distance they've raced before, or for the women, some of them ran 2 miles in high school. To go from 2 miles to 5K can be kind of a challenge. Sometimes it's 50% longer than what they were running before. My advice for them is yes, it is important, but to not feel like it is the be all end all of your season, of if this is where you finish in the race, then that's where you're stuck in our lineup all year long. There's the nice thing about cross country is everyone gets to race. I don't have a starting group that everyone else doesn't get to race. Everyone is going to get a chance to prove themselves every meet, and to just remind them of that and try and take some of the pressure that they're feeling off of themselves. I've already had a few meetings with a few of them that were feeling some of that pressure, and the game plan is to kind of stick in our groups as much as possible. We've been training in groups, and they've really responded well to that strategy and workouts, that workout structure, because again, last year they didn't have that. Men's and women's teams, a lot of it was really spread out. They didn't have groups to run with, and so having the big team this year, having everyone come back, has allowed us to train in groups and race in groups, which is really helpful for just staying calm in races. If I got my girls right here, I got my guys right here, I've been training with them, I know that I can hang with them and I don't feel isolated and on an island or anything like that. You feel a little bit more powerful, a little more confident, and if you're feeling that way in a race, you can respond to whatever is happening in the race a little more effectively than if that wasn't the case. And that's kind of the game plan for this first meet for a lot of them, just to kind of get the nerves out of the way before we adjust to a new race distance for everybody, 6K, 8K, and kind of use the same mentality, same strategy for that first 8K is stick in the groups as long as possible, and then that last 3K, 2K for the men, the last 2K for the women, if you should feel controlled up to there, and then at that point just let loose, just race, just beat people. And I think that kind of takes the pressure off. I've told them a number of times, I don't care what the time is this first meet. or even the first like 8K, 6K, like I'm interested to know what it will be, but I'm not using that as the definition of a successful race or not. Like I want to know, can we execute the race strategy that we talk about? And because if we can do that, then we can do it better. We can run it faster later in the season once we've done it 2, 3, 4 times versus trying to hit a home run right on the first one. If they run fast time, that's great, but can you do it again? Can you do it at the meets that matter, at the conference meet, at the regional meet? As far as goals, for the women's team, I think that we as a team can improve a lot. I can't remember how many points we scored at the meet last year, but I would like to score significantly less this year. I think the team was 5th last year. I think we can be 4th and challenge 3rd place as well. I would really like to see us put up a fight for that 3rd place spot. And then at the regional meet, it's hard to say because the team last year didn't put a scoring 5 across the line. So it'd be interesting to see how that shakes out. I could have a more accurate answer once we've got a few races under our belts, a few 6Ks. And then for the men, they were 3rd last year. I would like to see us close the gap on number 2 a lot. I think that freshman class we have this year is really strong and is going to help us do that. And like I said, a lot of the returners from last year had great summers, so I'm looking to see them improve too. So close the gap on number 2 and increase the gap on number 4 behind us. Not forget about them. Like it was a relatively close finish at conference last year. And if one person has an off day, that could have been down to 4th place. But I think so with some added depth this year, we can really gap 4th place and continue our grip on 3rd place. And then at the regional meet, I want them to be top 12. On our best day, like stretch goal is top 10. I think if we can continue to improve our fitness and be comfortable racing and learn the 8K really well, on our best day we can finish in the top 10, which would be really special. I don't know the last time Southwestern finished in the top 10 for the men or women.
Well, thank you, Coach. I think that just about wraps it up. We appreciate your time today. We will see you out there early in the morning on Friday. Good luck to both the men's and women's cross-country teams this season. The Pirates will race again on their home course in the SU Showdown on Saturday, September 16th, right here on the campus of Southwestern University. For head coach Joe Sponsel, I'm Bailey Middleton. We will see you out there on the courts and on the fields of play this season. Thank you all for listening.